How are you going? Hey, welcome to another weekly recap of Trinidad Bhojpuri words and phrase. So we had quite an interesting week. We started the week with PAHAR, JATAA. We had our Trinidad Bhojpuri phrase, SAAJAY, SARJAM. We also had SIEW, and we wrapped up the week with BAURA. So we had an interesting response. We had really nice reviews. So we are going to catch up with Vinay of the Cutlass magazine for this weekly recap. So this is the star.
Right, they're doing it like this, right? I'm mashing it up so.
I'm Karen Das.
And I'm Vinay Harrichan.
All right, Vinay. So we had an interesting week. I mean, you left a lot of people in a kind of a befuddled state with some of these words. So, and you, if you were following the trend, you would have realized that these were sort of related to the celebration of Mahashivratri. So we started the week with PAHAR. Now, we had it labeled as PAHAR, and many of you responded with mountain. So, and we're familiar with PAHAR. So, Vinay, tell us, is it PAHAR, PAHAR? Which one would we go with as Trinidad Bhojpuri?
So the one that I'm familiar with is PAHAR, and I know it with the long A at the end, but I did notice that some people said it with the short A. So I think it could just be a coincidence of our Trinidadian accent and the local parlance that we have in Trinidad and our tendency to kind of extend words or shorten them. So PAHAR or PAHAR, and if you know it within context, that you're talking about Lord Shiva or for Shivratri, then you know PAHAR to be the offering that you make typically 4 times on Shivratri.
Right. So that interval period would be that PAHAR. And if PAHAR is being used by some people to mean that unit of time, then what would be the Trinidad Bhojpuri word for mountain or hill?
I guess you could also just use PAHAR, because PAHAR, typically, I guess, because there's a lot of words in Hindustani that sounds very similar. So I think we even covered the Juta word with, you know, all the different similarities of how you could say that for shoe, lion, and contamination. So I think it really ends up being context-based. So PAHAR you could use for mountain, and then PAHAR for the interval time for Shivratri.
Wonderful. Okay, so PAHAR or PAHAR, but what we were really going for there was that unit of time or that interval period. Then we moved on to a nice easy one, JATAA. JATAA. And the response, matted hair, Shiva's hair, rasta, dreadlocks, bundled hair, untidy hair, which I think would be jabri. But that was our word, JATAA.
Yeah, so untidy hair is jabri. JATAA is known specifically for matted hair, dreadlocked hair, hair with knots in it. And for people referencing the Rasta, it's important to know that Rastafari, a lot of them actually drew their inspiration from Lord Shiva. So that's where the knotted, matted hair in Rastafari culture comes from. The fact that Lord Shiva is often depicted with dreadlocks or matted hair. So JATAA would be dreadlocked hair.
All right. And our Trinidad Bhojpuri phrase, SAAJAY, SARJAM. And many people messaged me and they said they'd never even heard of the word SARJAM. One person asked if it was SARJAM. Someone also asked if it's Sajawi, if SAAJAY is from Sajawi. So it's a combination of 2 words, it's SAAJAY, SARJAM. So let's break it down. What is SAAJAY? What is SARJAM?
So SAAJAY is to decorate something, and then Sajawi is to have something decorated. So I guess you could even use both of the words because it just depends on the context you're using it. SAAJAY is you doing the decorations. Sajawi would be you having the decorations done. And then, so people might even know the word SAAJAY or Saji from that popular song, More Gadi Suno Maharaj. where it says Ajaba Dulaha Badi Saji Hai, which means very decorated, very done up. So Sajay or Sajay is when you take all of the puja materials that you need and you set it out, you put it nicely organized, and you're sajawing it, you're decorating it, setting it out. And then Sarjam, I do have proof that I've seen this on puja shops where it says puja Sarjam, and it's not Sarjam, it's Sarjam, and some people use it with samagri. So I've often heard samagri being used interchangeably with Sarjam, but typically in the way that I know it, the context, I often hear puja Sarjam, all the materials needed for puja, and then Hawan samagri, all of the ingredients and items needed for Hawan. So I think you can use both them interchangeably, but Sarjam is essentially everything you need for puja or a Hawan.
Okay, Sajay, Sarjam. And I think the hint was that a now can handle that really well because that's part of their duty or responsibility.
Yeah. In Trinidad dialect, you might hear someone say "Saajay di Sarjam," like "Manje di Bartan, Saajay di Sarjam."
Well, there you go. So for those of us who had never used this phrase before, we have a good reason to use it now. Saajay di Sarjam. Okay, so we moved on to another Trinidad Bhojpuri word. And sometimes we like to go with a name. So we went with SIEW, which again related to Shiva.
So SIEW is essentially the Bhojpuri name for Lord Shiva. So people might hear names like SIEW Narayan, SIEW Das, and the important thing to know there is that SIEW comes from Lord Shiva. And actually some places in Trinidad and Guyana, people might even say Shiva, or for Shiva, they might say Siwa, because there's that differential of the V and the W, Diwali, Shiva, Siwa. So Siwa or SIEW is another name for Lord Shiva.
And you might be familiar with Siwala, which is a hut or a temple made in the name of Shiva. And that's the inspiration. And we wrapped up with a sort of food-related word, except this is not part that you'd want to consume, and it is related to sugarcane, BAURA. Some people say BAURA, and Vinay, you're familiar with BAURKH. And I did come across some folks who actually said, yes, we know what is BAURA cane.
No, the cane itself is called.
Really?
Yes, it's called cane, but I want to have it crack out here and that's nice.
Oh.
Yeah.
Right, okay, so now I understand BAURA.
Yeah.
Yeah, so BAURA cane, BAURKH, it's the part of the cane that you don't want to eat because it might be that reddish part or the rotten part. So typically you would hear, you cut off the BAURA and you don't eat it. And BAURKH may come from BAURA cane. So just know that BAURKH, it's the rotten part of cane or sugar cane that you don't want to consume.
Yeah. A nice lady told me that if you were to slit it, the actual sugar cane, and if you were to split it open, you would see discoloration. Of course, you don't want to eat that. You don't want to consume that. And that is what they had referred to as BAURA. That's what she is. So it's the rotting part or that discolored part of the sugar cane. So great job, everybody. So it seems like it was a week of learning because some of these words, appear to be new to lots of people. And that's the whole point of Trinidad Bhojpuri words and phrase. We're trying to hold on to as many of these words as possible because we've lost just so many with the generations gone by. So it's a way to preserve what is ours. So if you would like to get in touch with Vinay at the Cutlass magazine, here's how you do so.
Yes, you can just follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or TikTok at Cutlass Magazine, or send me an inquiry at cutlasspodcast@gmail.com.
And I want to say thank you to those of you who have submitted words as well for us to research and include in this feature. We thank you so much for that. So we'll jump into those as we dive into another week of Trinidad Bhojpuri words and phrase. So till next week. Well, I hope you enjoyed this weekly recap and we all learned some new words this week. Thank you so much. This has been a KDC production in collaboration with Vinay of the Cutlass magazine. So catch you next week.